"Leave him be, man. Just a kid on a trip." That's what a voice muttered behind Trent Salazar as the bus platform buzzed. But Trent's eyes locked onto something that made his pulse spike. A scuffed blue backpack, the exact shade from the missing posters taped around downtown. The kid wearing it couldn't have been more than 15. His hair hid half his face, his posture folded in on itself. But what froze Trent was the way the older man beside him moved, possessive, rehearsed. The man answered questions before the boy even opened his mouth. Then the flashpoint. Trent glimpsed a short video on the man's phone, just seconds long, but enough. A pale wrist bound tight with gray tape, shaking in silence. That same backpack slung in frame. Trent had seen wounds and restraints in combat zones. He knew the difference between a scrape and a signal. This was no coincidence. His gut screamed act now, but instincts alone wouldn't hold up here. He had no badge, no authority, just his training and the iron will that never left a medic's hands. The hiss of air brakes echoed across the station. PA speakers dinged. The world moved on like nothing was wrong. But Trent knew danger when it paraded in daylight. And in that moment, he wasn't just a bystander. He was the only line between that boy and vanishing. With steady breath, he stepped closer, heart pounding with one thought: not on my watch. Trent didn't barge in. He'd learned the hard way that reckless heroics only made chaos. Instead, he drifted to the kiosk, where a young attendant named Logan Shaw scanned tickets with the kind of detached rhythm only long shifts could teach. "Kid with the man in the gray jacket," Trent murmured low, eyes still forward. "He talking for himself?" Logan's glance was quick, cautious, then a whisper barely audible. "The guy talks for the kid." Scripted. There it was. Confirmation. Enough to jolt Trent's pulse, but not yet enough for sirens and handcuffs. Inside, the medic's logic fired up. His goal crystallized: rescue the boy without spooking the handler and do it through the proper channels. That meant documenting, cross-checking, and pulling the right levers. He sketched the exits in his head: the driver's break room door, the east stairwell, the blind spots between security cameras. Everything the military had drilled into him, he mapped in seconds. But beyond tactics, something heavier pressed on him. The memory of lives lost because someone assumed instead of acted. He would not gamble here. The hum of the station, the shuffle of passengers, the clink of Logan's scanner, it all blurred. Trent's focus narrowed to a single mission: keep the boy safe, keep the evidence airtight. Not a vigilante, not a guesser, a protector who knew the rules and how to bend them just enough. Trent leaned on the counter, scanning the display as Logan pulled up reload logs. Lines of digital timestamps flickered, tap card entries, reload receipts, patterns hiding in plain sight. 3 reloads, same kiosk, same hour, 3 different days, always around 1:57 p.m. Trent's chest tightened. That wasn't casual travel, that was a schedule. He pictured the missing poster again, the washed-out photo of Jace Whitaker, 15, last seen downtown, same brand of backpack, same frayed strap. The overlap was too sharp to ignore. Coincidence? Logan asked under his breath. Trent shook his head slowly. That's a system. And systems were exactly what predators relied on. Routines that slid beneath notice, blending into the rhythm of everyday commutes. A creeping unease crawled under Trent's skin. He'd patched up soldiers who ignored patterns, who thought routine was safety. It never was. Now staring at those reload logs, he felt the same pull. This wasn't a fluke. Someone had built a machine out of time and tracks, and this boy was a cog caught in it. Resolve hardened in him. The evidence was stacking piece by piece, and soon it would be undeniable. The next piece fell into place not on a screen, but in flesh and bone. From the corner of his eye, Trent watched as the handler's hand clamped down on the back of Jace's neck. Subtle to most, but Trent saw the boy flinch, saw his shoulders stiffen like a dog bracing for a leash jerk. The man spoke fast, polished answers rolling out whenever anyone glanced at them. Jace barely parted his lips. His silence screamed louder than any words. Overhead, the CCTV time code ticked, 2:02 p.m., right on the dot. Trent's pulse pounded in sync with that red counter. He wasn't imagining things. He was documenting coercion in real time. Every detail etched into his memory. The grip, the boy's micro-reaction, the handler's rigid posture. No courtroom in America could call that paranoia once paired with the logs. Still, Trent stayed still. His job wasn't to confront, but to collect. to turn suspicion into irrefutable proof. And as the PA chimed overhead, he felt it, the storm gathering momentum. He had evidence now, and with evidence came the power to move higher, faster, louder. The line had been crossed. Now it was only a matter of pushing until the right doors opened. Trent ducked into a quiet corner by the payphone alcove, the hum of vending machines masking his low voice. He dialed Transit Security Dispatch, words clipped and precise. Years of battlefield reports had trained him to deliver details like scalpel cuts. Blue backpack, male teen, adult handler answering for him. I've got visual evidence of coercion. The pause on the other end stretched too long. Then came the flat reply, not enough for a unit, no positive ID. We can't move. Trent closed his eyes, jaw tight. He'd heard those words before, in a different desert, over a radio that had cost lives. Not enough. Can't move. His fingers curled against his thigh. Anger flared, hot, but discipline pressed it down. Yelling wouldn't save Jace. Losing control never did. He forced his breath steady. The dispatcher was just following the checklist, ticking boxes that didn't leave space for gut instinct. And Trent couldn't let fury wreck the chain of trust he needed now. Copy that, he muttered, voice even. Call ended. He stood there, pulse hammering. First floor had failed him. That only meant climbing higher. The hiss of espresso steam from the cafe cut through his thoughts. The boy was still out there, still in danger, still waiting for someone to move. Trent straightened his shoulders. If the ladder was tall, he'd climb every rung until someone answered. This wasn't over. Trent pulled his phone and scrolled to the contact he rarely used but never deleted. Nora Keene, State Liaison for Missing Children. A name that came with weight and channels beyond his reach. He hit call. The line picked up on the second ring. Keene. It's Salazar, downtown transit hub. Possible custody situation, matching poster details. I've got time-stamped behavior, visual of coercion, and supporting witness. No hesitation, no dismissal, just crisp authority. Case number coming your way. Stand by. His phone vibrated with a new message seconds later. Case 44217. Relief pulsed in him, not because the fight was over, but because it wasn't his alone anymore. He'd passed the torch into official hands where action had teeth. Passengers shuffled past, oblivious. But Trent felt the ground shift beneath him. He was no longer just a medic turned bystander. He was part of a team forming in shadows, aligning toward the same target. The knot in his chest eased, replaced by focused urgency. He had an ally now, someone watching the same clock he was. The handler still sat at the gate, thumb scrolling his phone. The boy sipped from a bottle, silent, eyes unfocused. Trent tightened his grip on his own phone, eyes never leaving them. He'd buy whatever time Nora's team needed. A soft chime overhead announced bus boarding. The clock was ticking louder, but Trent wasn't alone. Trent spotted his chance when the handler shifted in his seat, distracted by a call. He strode to the cafe counter, ordered coffee, then deliberately asked for the wrong size. When the cup arrived, he frowned theatrically. Shoot, that's on me. Hey, could you help me fix this? His eyes flicked toward Jace. The boy hesitated, then rose when the handler waved him off. Irritated, Trent kept his tone casual, light. What do you think, medium or large? He pointed at the pastry case. You like chocolate croissants? Jace's gaze lifted for the first time, faint flicker of confusion crossing his face. His voice, low and careful. Medium's fine. Trent felt it, the tremor under the words. Not fear of coffee, fear of saying the wrong thing. He nodded like it was nothing. Medium it is. He ordered again, deliberately slow, letting the seconds stretch. Steam hissed from the espresso machine, a receipt reprinted, a pastry bag crinkled. Behind them, the handler's eyes bored into Trent's back, but the man stayed seated. Trent smiled easy, masking the taut coil in his chest. Every second Jace spent here was a second closer to backup arriving. He slid the croissant across. On me. Looks like you could use it. The boy blinked, unsure, but he took it. And for one fragile moment, the chain between handler and captive slackened. Trent sipped his coffee, heartbeat drumming steady. The stall was working. As Jace bit into the croissant, crumbs scattering across the counter, Trent's eyes caught the tiny transfer code printed on his bus ticket. He memorized it in a glance, then noted the coach ID stenciled above the gate. He thumbed the details into a text for Nora. Seconds later, her reply buzzed back. ID matches flagged carrier node, codename Carousel. Trent's stomach tightened. Carousel wasn't a ride, it was a system, and Jace was about to be carried along unless they stopped it. He forced his expression neutral, sliding the receipt toward Logan. "Can you just bag this for me?" His voice calm, casual, but his hand trembled slightly under the counter as he sent the data. The cafe's background chatter blurred, every sound drowned beneath the rush of his pulse. The handler was watching, eyes narrowed, but Trent kept his smile steady, his tone light. Inside, though, a chill ran through him. This wasn't just a dangerous man, it was a machine with routes, codes, and schedules, and Jace was locked into it like a passenger with no ticket out. Trent swallowed the last of his coffee, steadying himself. The case was no longer theory. It had a name, a footprint, a pulse. He met Logan's eyes briefly, a silent acknowledgement. Witness secured, trail building. The hiss of the espresso machine faded into the background. The fight had shifted gears. Now it wasn't just about stalling, it was about dismantling Carousel before it spun the boy away forever. Trent slid the reprinted receipt across the counter, his voice calm but firm. "Logan, I need you to sign this. 2 copies, 1 sealed, 1 kept." The young attendant blinked, nerves flickering in his eyes, but Trent's steady tone anchored him. Logan grabbed a black pen, scribbled his name, then pressed the clock button on the register. The timestamp burned into paper, irrefutable. Chain of custody. The phrase pounded in Trent's mind. In war zones, it meant blood samples, weapon fragments, any scrap that could hold truth. Here, it meant a coffee receipt and a witness. Small, ordinary artifacts, but proof all the same. Logan slid 1 copy into an envelope. A peel and stick seal crackled shut. The other he tucked beneath the counter. 2 copies. Logan whispered, echoing Trent's words. Trent felt the urgency coiled in his chest, but discipline guided his hands. Every signature, every timestamp, every sealed fold stacked bricks under the case. Anger was air. Paper was stone. Behind him, the handler shifted in his seat, a shadow at the edge of Trent's awareness, restless, suspicious. Trent took the sealed envelope, nodded once, and tucked it inside his jacket. The boy was still eating, still close, still safe, for now. The work was methodical, deliberate, almost invisible to the crowd. Yet Trent knew it mattered. When this reached a courtroom, no one could dismiss it as paranoia. This was evidence, and evidence was how the boy would walk free. The text buzzed against Trent's palm like a warning bell. Pickup moved earlier. His eyes snapped up just as the handler tugged Jace's arm, steering him toward Gate B. Trent's chest clenched. Too soon. Nora's team wasn't here yet. If the boy vanished now, the whole trail could collapse. The handler's grip tightened, guiding Jace through the narrow queue lane. The boy's shoulders rounded smaller, shrinking with every step. Trent moved without hesitation. He maneuvered through the crowd, bumping a stanchion so it clattered onto the floor. He bent fast, muttering apologies, forcing the handler to pause as people shuffled awkwardly around. Seconds, that's all he bought. But seconds mattered. He caught Jace's eyes, wide, uncertain, but alert. The boy clutched the croissant like a lifeline, crumbs dusting his fingers. The handler glared, irritation flashing across his face. But he didn't bolt. Not yet. Trent's heart hammered, but his face stayed smooth, disarming. He nodded politely, letting the moment pass as if it were clumsy coincidence. Inside, every nerve screamed with urgency. Nora's team had to be close. The boy had to stay here. The PA announced another departure. Time bled fast. Trent steadied his breath. He would keep building soft walls, invisible barricades, until backup arrived. He wasn't letting this bus roll. Not today. A ripple passed through the station, so subtle most passengers missed it, but Trent caught it instantly. A plainclothes figure at the far corner, another near the cafe, a third by the gate, setting down a maintenance out-of-service sign in front of the idling bus. Nora's team had arrived. Relief surged in Trent's chest, but he kept his expression neutral, his body language casual. He couldn't spook the handler. Not now. The handler frowned at the sudden sign. His hand twitched tighter on Jace's arm, indecision flickering across his face. Trent watched, calm, but coiled, ready to act as shield if the man lashed out. One of the agents brushed past him, subtle as a shadow, a whisper barely audible. "We have it." Trent's shoulders eased fractionally. The circle was forming. Perimeter control, quiet and professional. Passengers grumbled about delays, blending into the cover. The bus sat idle, hazard lights blinking. From a distance, it looked like nothing more than a mechanical hiccup. But Trent knew better. This was the moment the tide turned. For the first time since spotting that blue backpack, he allowed himself a thought he hadn't dared. The boy is going to make it out. The team worked quickly, eyes sharp, movements efficient. One tech mapped the transfer code to CCTV footage. Another pulled the coach ID into a database. The picture sharpened with every layer. Trent stood close, listening, memorizing. This wasn't random abduction. It was a pipeline. A quiet voice at his shoulder confirmed it. This isn't custody. It's Carousel. The words chilled him. Carousel wasn't a man. It was a system. A wheel designed to move children like cargo, disguised as commuters. Trent's jaw tightened. He thought of Jace's silence, the handler's grip, the reload logs, pieces of a machine grinding in plain sight. Anger rose, but this time it was tempered by clarity. Personal outrage had just become structural battle. He wasn't fighting one man anymore. He was standing against a network. The boy shifted uneasily nearby, nibbling what was left of his croissant, oblivious to the fact that his escape had just lit up a web stretching far beyond this station. Trent steadied himself. Midpoint reached. The mission wasn't just to save Jace. It was to help dismantle Carousel piece by piece, and that battle had only begun. The boy shifted his backpack, adjusting the strap with a nervous tug. For a split second, the flap lifted, just enough for Trent's trained eyes to catch something. A tag, faint lilac ink, half hidden in the lining. Scribbled words that made Trent's blood run cold. Riverton, Sada 214, 2's 2.15. He didn't stare, didn't freeze. He memorized it in a blink, the way he'd memorized morphine dosages under fire. But inside, his chest tightened like a vice. That was no random note. That was a schedule. One of the agents caught his eye, subtle nod. They'd seen it too. Phones snapped discrete photos, preserving the evidence without drawing attention. Trent exhaled slowly, steadying himself. Tiny objects broke big cases that had been drilled into him since the first time a blood-stained dog tag told a story the living couldn't. Here, a folded slip of paper could open the door to the very heart of Carousel. The boy pulled the strap tight again, covering the note. He didn't realize the weight of the message tucked against his shoulder, but Trent did. And so did the team. The handler shifted impatiently, tapping his foot, checking the departures. Time pressed harder, shadows lengthening. Trent kept his face calm, but his mind was already moving miles ahead. Room 214, Tuesday. A clock was ticking, and they'd just been given its location. The evidence tech tapped rapidly on a tablet, tracing the transfer code deeper into encrypted logs. A blurred chat feed popped up. Snippets of language pulled from servers. Keep intake on time. 214 confirmed. And then the word stamped in bold across the header, Carousel. Trent's stomach nodded. The word carried weight now, no longer a whispered code. It was the name of the program itself. He watched the ethics officer's jaw tighten as the details scrolled past. Tick box schedules, intake logs, efficiency ratings, children reduced to metrics on a digital wheel. A quiet, simmering anger pulsed through him. He'd seen soldiers turned into numbers. He'd fought to remind the world that behind every figure was a life. Now, seeing the same reduction applied to kids, that anger reignited like a fuse. This isn't custody, one agent murmured. It's throughput. Trent swallowed hard. The boy sat just feet away, silent, unaware of how deep the machine went. Carousel wasn't just moving him, it was moving many. The screen dimmed as the tech locked the evidence. Trent clenched his fists, knuckles pale. This wasn't just about one rescue anymore. It was about tearing down an entire system built to vanish children. And they'd just named their enemy. A narrow service hallway became the staging ground. Clipboards, tablets, radios, all quiet, efficient. The field commander laid out the map, zones drawn in red, yellow, green. We have one shot to do this right. No noise, no slip. Trent stood shoulder to shoulder with the team, assigned to shield position near the boy. His role wasn't to storm or cuff. It was to guard, to anchor the moment Jace was pulled free. Legal signed the ROE board. Rules of engagement clear, strict. No improvisation, no shortcuts. Every step documented, admissible. The medic prepped blankets, water, a scanner. Evidence techs checked Faraday pouches for devices. The hum of professionalism filled the air. Each person locked into discipline. Trent felt his pulse slow into focus. The chaos of combat was one thing. This was its mirror. Silence, order, precision. A pen clicked. Go. The word echoed in his chest. They moved as one, calm and lethal in their efficiency. This wasn't a vigilante move. This was law-meeting ethics wrapped in quiet strength. Trent tightened his stance. He was ready. The excuse was simple. Maintenance check. The kind of phrase commuters ignored without a second thought. Two agents approached the bus, tool bags slung naturally. Another blocked the service stairwell with a polite smile and a velvet rope. Trent shifted closer to Jace, shielding him subtly with his frame as the handler frowned at the growing disruption. The bus doors sighed open with a hiss, a squeak of hinges. Then the team flowed in, silent, deliberate, like a tide creeping through a doorway. Zones lit on their map. Red for risk, yellow for caution, green for cleared. Step by step, containment spread. Trent's hand hovered near the boy's shoulder, steady, but not pressing. He felt Jace's breath quicken, the boy tensing as if sensing the shift. The handler started to rise, suspicion flashing sharp. But Trent angled himself just enough to block, voice smooth as glass. They'll get you rolling in no time. Just routine. Inside, adrenaline surged. Outwardly, he radiated calm. No raised voices, no weapons drawn, just disciplined flow. By the time the handler realized the ground had changed, the circle was already closed. The breach had worked, not with noise, but with silence. Inside the bus, the air was heavy, stale with diesel and dust. The team moved like surgeons, methodical, precise. Evidence techs snapped photos of every surface. A ledger tucked behind the driver's panel, phones buried beneath the seat. A keycard taped under the dashboard. Each item was handled with gloved hands, slipped into Faraday pouches, labeled in black Sharpie. Times logged, signatures recorded, chain of custody airtight. Trent's eyes locked on the bus's time board, a laminated sheet scribbled with stops, transfers, numbers. His chest tightened when he spotted it. 214 scrawled next to the Riverton entry, the same digits hidden in the boy's backpack tag. Proof. Hard. Undeniable. He felt a grim satisfaction settle in. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't speculation. The system's fingerprints were all over this machine. A medic's instinct told him to breathe easier, but the soldier in him knew better. Proof was just the beginning. Now they had to carry it out intact. The evidence officer sealed the final pouch, marker squeaking across the surface. Logged. Witnessed. Trent gave a small nod. The pieces were falling into place. This bus wasn't just a ride, it was a cog in Carousel's machine, and tonight, that cog had been captured. The handler suddenly bolted, shoving past a passenger, eyes darting toward the service stairs. Trent's instincts fired, every muscle screamed to give chase. But he froze, then pivoted to the maintenance board instead. His hand slammed the emergency stop. Thunk. A red light blinked to life. The bus locked in place. Wheels seized, engine silenced. The handler whipped his head around, realization crashing across his face. No escape. Not through this bus. Not tonight. Trent's chest heaved, adrenaline buzzing in his veins. He wanted to run him down, to drag him to the ground, but his training whispered steady. The boy first, evidence second, pursuit last. Agents moved fast, fanning out, securing the exits. The handler stumbled, cornered, but the net had already closed. Passengers murmured, unaware of the storm swirling inches away. To them, it was just another mechanical hiccup. Inside, Trent's pulse thundered, but outwardly, he was still, calm, controlled. He'd chosen the higher priority. Shield the boy, lock the evidence. The chase urge burned like fire in his chest, but discipline won. And discipline saved lives. The handler was pressed back, agents circling tight, but Trent turned away from him. His focus snapped only to Jace. He crouched low, voice soft, steady. "You okay, kid? You're safe now." Jace's eyes darted, wide and trembling. He didn't answer, but he didn't pull away either. His hands shook as he clutched the last crumbs of croissant. The medic and Trent kicked in. He checked the boy's breathing, the tremor in his pulse. A pen light swept gently across his wrist, revealing the faint residue of adhesive. Not just tape, something more. He leaned closer. Embedded in the sticky outline was a tiny sensor, a micro-ping band. His gut twisted. They hadn't just restrained Jace. They'd been tracking him. Trent lowered his tone, warm, protective. "It's coming off. You've got a choice. Blanket or water first." The boy blinked, startled at the offer, then whispered, "Water." Trent smiled softly, handing him a bottle. The child advocate draped a blanket over Jace's shoulders, shielding him from the cold air. For the first time, Trent saw it. The boy's breathing easing, the rigid mask cracking. Warrior instincts quieted. Guardian instincts took over. This wasn't just rescue. This was dignity restored, piece by fragile piece. The commander's voice cut sharp but calm. Split routes. Now. They moved with quiet choreography. One van waited for Jace, clean and shielded, with the advocate and medic inside. Another carried evidence, sealed and logged. A third, an empty decoy coach, would roll in the opposite direction, bait for any eyes still watching. Trent guided Jace gently toward the safe van, every step measured. The boy clutched the water bottle, blanket wrapped snug, eyes darting but steadier now. Behind them, an agent slipped the handler's confiscated phone into a Faraday pouch. Another toggled its connection just long enough to send a false ping, decoying anyone tracing the signal. The map overlay on the commander's tablet glowed, green for safe extraction, red for diversion routes. The wheel of Carousel would be chasing shadows tonight. Engines rumbled, brake lights flared. 3 departures at once, each vanishing into the night on separate paths. Trent climbed into the van with Jace, settling opposite him. The boy met his eyes for the first time, a flicker of fragile trust sparking in the silence. Trent gave him a small nod, calm and steady. "You made it out." The door slammed shut. The convoy rolled, and Carousel had just lost one of its stolen pieces. The van split into the night, taillights glowing like faint embers, but the radio crackled with a demand that froze the cabin. A voice, low and measured, laced with menace. "Swap. The kid for the ledger or neither walks." Trent's jaw tightened. The handler's allies were still out there. Carousel wasn't giving up easy. The field commander's eyes flicked to the legal officer, then to Trent. Silence hung heavy, the van humming beneath them. Trent leaned forward, voice steady as steel. "No deals on children. Ever!" The radio hissed with static. The ultimatum repeated, sharp, pressing. "Ledger for the boy. You've got 5 minutes." But Trent knew the trap. Trade the ledger, and every shred of proof vanished. Trade the boy, and justice died with him. Either way, Carousel won. The legal officer wrote it down word for word. Documentation mattered as much as defiance. Trent's pulse pounded. He'd seen commanders cave under pressure before, and the fallout was always blood. Not tonight, not with Jace in this van. He spoke low, calm for the team, but also for the boy listening with wide eyes. "Evidence stays with us. The kid stays with us. Non-negotiable." The words landed like anchors, principle planted in stone. Carousel had drawn its line. Trent had drawn his. The standoff was set. The tech hunched over a small receiver, antenna coiled tight. On the screen, a wavering line pulsed, Jace's heartbeat, mirrored by the adhesive sensor. Trent's chest clenched. The ping wasn't just a tracker, it was a dead man switch. If the signal cut without control, Carousel would know. The boy sat silent, wrapped in his blanket, unaware that his very pulse was a beacon. The advocate's hand stayed steady on Jace's shoulder. Trent leaned close, whispering reassurance, while the tech's fingers danced over keys. "We can spoof it," the tech murmured, sweat beating at his temple. "Shadow the signal, keep them blind." Seconds dragged, the waveform flickered. One wrong move, and Carousel would know their prize was gone. Trent forced his breathing slow, steady, lending calm to the boy trembling before him. Then, click. The LED on the band flickered once, then died. But the mirrored signal held steady, artificial and perfect. No alert, no chase, just silence. Trent exhaled, relief crashing through him like a wave. Muscle hadn't saved Jace this time. Mastery had. He touched the boy's shoulder gently. "You're safe. Kid, they can't see you anymore." For the first time, Jace's lips twitched, half a smile, fragile but real. The trap had been disarmed, not with brute force, but with precision. Ethics guiding tactics, skill over violence. And now the way was clear. The decoy coach rolled into a dim lot, shadowed by Carousel's watchers. But instead of Jace, they found plainclothes agents. The ring closed fast, silent as snowfall. One by one, operatives were cuffed, phones seized, devices sealed in evidence bags. Trent watched from a distance, radio pressed to his ear. The word came through: safe, green. Relief surged, not in cheers, but in discipline. No shots fired, no chaos, just quiet arrests, every step logged, every item tagged. The handler, dragged into custody, spat curses that echoed across the lot. But his fury landed on deaf ears. Trent's focus stayed on process, cuffs clicking, Sharpie scrawls on seals, signatures pressed into forms, proof layered on proof until Carousel's denials would crumble. He remembered combat zones where justice was a bullet and nothing more. Tonight was different. Tonight, justice meant paperwork, procedure, order. The boy sat in the safe van, shielded from the sight. That was how it should be. The commander's voice cut through the radio. Custody confirmed, chain secured. Trent let out a long breath. It wasn't triumph, it was closure. The wheel had been stopped, at least here, at least tonight. The morning light crept over the city when Trent finally stepped back. The vans had dispersed, evidence delivered to the district attorney, warrants spinning wider. Carousel's wheel would keep turning, but now it had cracks. Jace sat with a social worker, Maya Ellison, in a quiet room. Pediatric exam complete, blanket folded neatly at his side. His family waited nearby, voices hushed with anticipation. When the door opened, and Jace's mother rushed in, the reunion was wordless. Arms wrapped, tears spilled, the kind of moment too private for cameras. Trent turned away, giving them dignity. Some victories weren't for public record. Later, a single on-camera statement was offered. Nora, the liaison, stood firm. This interview is one time only. The child's dignity comes first. Always. Trent lingered at the edge of the room, the medic's weight heavy in his chest. He hadn't done this for recognition. He'd done it because a blue backpack and a taped wrist had lit every alarm in his soul. He stepped outside, the air crisp, the city alive with noise. The world moved on, unaware of the boy who'd nearly been lost. But Trent knew, and he hoped those watching would know too. Vigilance matters. Patterns matter. And when suspicion rises, there are right channels, safe steps, lifelines to pull. His final words echoed as the screen faded. A child's dignity comes first. Always.